今天要分享的改编故事是盲人摸象，希望能在学习英语的路上给你带来收获。你的每个点赞和订阅都是对我莫大的鼓励。那么，咱们开始吧。
Long ago, in the ancient land of India, there ruled a wise king in a city called Savatthi. This king, known as the mirror-faced king, had a curious mind and loved to teach his people profound lessons in unforgettable ways. He looked out at his subjects and saw that many of them argued about great matters without truly understanding the full picture. They clung to their small piece of the truth as if it were the whole. One day, the king summoned his trusted minister and gave a strange order. "Go through the city," he commanded, "and gather every person born blind. Bring them all to the palace courtyard." The minister bowed and left. He searched the streets and markets, gathering men who had lived their whole lives in complete darkness. Soon, a small crowd of blind men stood in the courtyard, confused and murmuring amongst themselves, wondering what the king wanted. The king then gave his second order. "Bring me the largest elephant from the royal stables." The servants obeyed, leading a majestic, gigantic elephant into the center of the courtyard. The ground seemed to tremble slightly with each heavy step the great beast took. The elephant stood there, flapping its giant ears and swaying its long trunk, a mountain of flesh and life. The king looked at the blind men and said, "You have lived your lives without ever seeing the world. Today, you will come to know an elephant. Go now, touch this creature, and when you are done, you will tell me what an elephant truly is." Excited and nervous, the blind men rushed forward, their hands reaching out into the unknown. They had waited their whole lives for this moment. One man stumbled forward and threw his arms around a massive, wrinkled leg. It was thick, rough, and immovable. He nodded to himself with deep certainty. Another man reached out and grabbed the elephant's trunk as it swung through the air. He felt it coil and flex, a powerful, living snake. He smiled, for he now understood. A third blind man happened to touch the elephant's ear. He held it gently, feeling the thin, wide surface flap back and forth. It was smooth and flat. He was sure he had grasped the truth. Another approached the side of the elephant. He pressed his palm against its vast, rough flank. It felt like a wall, solid and wide, stretching up and down. He leaned against it, convinced of his discovery. One man found the tusk, smooth, hard, and pointed. He traced its curve and was certain the elephant was like a spear or a great root. Another grabbed the thin, wiry tail and declared it to be a rope. Yet another touched the elephant's head and felt the hard, round skull, believing it to be a giant pot. They touched and they felt, each lost in their own small part of the puzzle. After a long while, the king clapped his hands, signaling them to stop. The blind men stepped back, each with a look of complete satisfaction on their face. They knew the answer. The king then asked, in a loud voice, "Tell me, have you all seen the elephant?" "Yes, Your Majesty," they all shouted in unison. "We have seen it, then," said the king, his voice calm. "Tell me its form. What is an elephant like?" The man who had held the leg stepped forward proudly. "O king, the elephant is like a mighty pillar. Sturdy and round, it stands firm like a great post." "No, no," shouted the man who had touched the trunk, waving his arms frantically. "You are completely wrong. The elephant is like a great snake. It is thick and powerful and can move and curl." The man who held the ear pushed forward, his face red with anger. "You are both blind fools. The elephant is like a giant fan. It is thin and wide and it flaps in the air." The man who touched the side scoffed loudly. "Lies. All lies. The elephant is like a great wall. It is rough and solid and goes on forever." The one who touched the tusk insisted it was a smooth, sharp plowshare. The man who grabbed the tail was sure it was a thin rope. The man who felt the head argued it was a large, round pot. Soon, the courtyard erupted into a storm of arguments. "You are wrong." "No, you are a liar." "I touched it myself." "I know the truth." They shouted and pointed, each one absolutely certain that their own experience was the only reality. They could not agree, and they could not see why the others were so blind. The king watched them argue for a long time, his face calm and patient. Finally, he raised his hand for silence. The blind men quieted down, still trembling with frustration. The king spoke, his voice gentle but firm. "Look at you. Each of you touched but one small part of the elephant. You felt the leg and called it a pillar. You felt the tail and called it a rope. You felt the side and called it a wall. And yet, the elephant is not a pillar, not a rope, not a wall. It is all of these things and so much more. It is the leg, the tail, the trunk, the ear, the tusk, the side, all combined into one single, living creature. You have each touched a piece of the truth, and in your ignorance, you have mistaken that small piece for the whole truth. This is why you argue. This is why you fight." The blind men hung their heads in shame. They finally understood. Their knowledge was not false, but it was incomplete. They had seen a part, but claimed to know the whole. This story is not just from ancient India. It is your story and my story, playing out every single day. Think about your own life. How often do we judge a person based on one single meeting? We see them on a bad day, or they say one thing we disagree with, and we label them. We say, "She's unfriendly," or "He's arrogant." We touched the trunk and called the whole elephant a snake. Think about the news. We read a headline, a quick 10-second clip, and we think we understand a complex global event. We form strong opinions based on a tiny piece of the story, argued with people who have touched a different part of the elephant, and we fight just like the blind men in the courtyard. We live in a world that moves so fast, we barely have time to touch one part of anything before we're forced to have an opinion. The king in our story was the only one who could see the whole elephant. But in your life, there is no king. There is no single person standing above you, showing you the full picture. You have to be your own king or queen. You have to take a step back and ask yourself, am I only touching the leg? Am I only reading the headline? Is this the whole elephant, or just the part one can reach right now? True wisdom isn't about being right. It's about knowing how much you cannot see. The next time you find yourself in a heated argument, or you're absolutely certain about something, remember the blind men. Remember the pillar, the rope, and the wall. And ask yourself, what part of the elephant am I not touching?
真诚感谢你的收看。如果本期内容对你有帮助，请点赞或留言告诉我，你的反馈对我非常重要。下期见。